It always is a good thing. The evidence of the inspiration of the Bible. It never ceases to fascinate me or to amaze me. Why do people still doubt? Tonight we're going to look at the reality from bronze to iron. Remember what the bronze stands for? Greece. And the iron, we already know, stands for... Okay, now we're going to prove this tonight. We're going to prove it that we're not just making an assumption or give it a private interpretation. We are looking at the historical realities as we know them to be true today. Now, just to recap, this prophecy that we're looking at covers an era of about 2,600 years. We put down 2.5. And it culminates right into the end time. You understand that? It culminates right into the end time. And so, let's look at it. We have Babylon, some 70 years, barely. Medo-Persia, 200 years or a bit more. Then we went from Medo-Persia to Greece. Greece did rather well. It also almost existed, well, just under 200 years. Imperial Rome, the next one, definitely is the biggest ever. This lasted from BC to AD. Imagine being dominant on the world stage for 600 years. That's Rome. Amazing. Now, we're going to look at some of the biblical predictions on Rome tonight. And then we get to the divided kingdoms afterwards, so that's for later. Let's have a look at it. Remember that he was talking about the legs of iron as he stood there before Nebuchadnezzar explaining the dream of the statue. You recall that, don't you? So we've gone from gold to silver to bronze, and we're now at the iron. And it says here, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay, and we'll deal with that next week. What is interesting, he says this, the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron. Now, that certainly applies to Rome. Inasmuch, iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes. This is a force, this is a power that can deal with all of its enemy and does so in a rather brutal sort of a way. In the first year of Belshazzar, 550 BC, he saw in the night vision, and he sees the beast coming out one after the other in succession. Do you recall that? We see the lion, which stands for what? Then we see the bear, the Medo-Persian bear, right? Then we see the leopard, which represents Greece. And I haven't spoken on the other, number 4, which is a nondescript beast. It's actually called a dragon. And that's for good reasons, and I'll explain that another time. It's a dragon. And we're going to look at that beast for a bit. So after this, in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast. So we now have this dragon. And a dragon has certain particulars. And I want you to note the particulars. It was dreadful. It was terrible. And how strong was it? Exceedingly strong. And it had what? Huge of what? Now that's interesting. That relates well to the legs of iron, doesn't it? Of course it does. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring and breaking in pieces and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different. Now I want you to remember this. It was what? Different. Please remember this. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. We're going to talk about the 10 horns next week. But it was different from Medo-Persia. It was different from Babylon. It was different from Greece. Correct? Different. Key word to remember. Note this. He gets an explanation There in chapter 7, there's an angel there, no doubt Gabriel. He comes to him and he explains it to him. That's the same angel who announces the birth of Christ 600 years later. It's wonderful, isn't it? Or 5.5 centuries later. I came near to one of those who stood by. I asked him the truth of all this. He wanted to know. He saw the vision. But it is interesting that the prophets often did not understand what they wrote down. They had no idea. Particularly of what is called apocalyptic prophecies that span thousands of years. They just didn't know the meaning and the application. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. There's a golden rule. And the golden rule is the Bible interprets itself. That's a key position we have to take. These great beasts, which are four kings which arise out of the earth. He said, there will be 4. We've dealt with 3, we're now going to look at number 4. And it is interesting because if you look at that 8th chapter, 547 BC, he has another vision. And I wanted to know the truth about the 4th beast, which was different from the others, exceedingly dreadful. Actually, that's the wrong day. That should be 550 BC. Exceedingly dreadful with its teeth of iron and its nails of. Ever wondered why the nails might be made of bronze? Do you know any connection between Rome and Greece? They adopted their religions. You understand? The Greek philosophies and religions were adopted by the Romans. They just gave them different names. But they were exactly the same deities. It's good to remember that. Very good to remember that. Okay. And the 10 horns that were on its head. So this is still chapter 7. And so now it's interesting as we move along. He said, note what he said, what Gabriel said. The 4th beast shall be a 4th kingdom on the earth. So that's for sure. It shall be different from all other kingdoms. There you have it again. Daniel saw they were different. The angel says it will be different. Very key word. Different. Then he goes on to say, and this is not listening, it shall devour the whole earth. Now, the Romans never got to China. They never got to the Incas and the Mayans in South America. When we say the whole world, we talk about the then known world of all the nations that had a possible impact upon the people of God, Israel. The Bible discusses and deals with the nations that had an impact and an interaction with the people of God. By the time Nebuchadnezzar was building Babylon, they were building the Chinese wall. You know that? To keep the rabbits out. Remember that? It shall devour the whole earth, trample it and break in pieces. It will be destructive. 10 horns are 10 kings or kingdoms. We're going to talk about that next week. Which shall arise from which kingdom? This 4th kingdom. You gotta understand what we're dealing with. It's always the details that count. It's just as the text reads, that's how you adopt it. And so, we're looking now at the 3rd year of Belshazzar, which indeed is 547 BC. Now it's interesting, he was looking there, and remember that he was considering a male goat came from where? There's west. He is standing at the river Ulai, which is still there probably at the time in Babylonian hands, because it's the 3rd year of Belshazzar, and he's out there on business, without touching the ground, very fast. And I've told you the connection between the goats and the Greeks. They were known as the goats people. Aegean Sea means goat sea, you understand. And so, they came from the west. And indeed, in the year 547, a few hundred years, more than 200 years before the event, he describes a force that comes from the west, which later will be identified as Greece, by the angel. If you would have said at that year, oh, the Grecians are going to rule the world, You would have laughed. It's a bit like saying New Zealand will rule the world. Any New Zealanders? No? Okay, then I'm safe. Originally. All right, Cop, I'll give a discount. Okay. And so here it is, comes from the west, tremendous speeds, 200 years plus before. It is true, with a tremendous speed, ferocity, because, the notable horn between the eyes. Remember that? The ram which you saw, having the two horns, well, we know who that is. The Medes and Persians. Okay. The male goat is the kingdom of Greece, and the large horn that is between its eyes is its, because he, Alexander, was the first king. His father, Philip of Macedon, never proclaimed himself king. It's fantastic. This is hundreds of years before the event. Then he came to the ram, which had two horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him with furious power. Furious. There was animosity, and I explained last week why the animosity was there, because there had been invasions by the Medes and Persians. And the Greek had not forgotten this. You know how some nations just intensely dislike each other? Yeah, well, that was then, and it's still now today. And I saw him confronting the ram. He sees him moving with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke its two horns. Now, there was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him to the ground and trampled him, and there was no one that could deliver him from his hand. Medo-Persia got beaten. Shouldn't have. The ratio of manpower was 1 to 40. Can you believe it? And then in 331 BC, you have the Battle of Arbela. That's the decider. It is decisive. Now, we talked about that last week. Therefore, the male goat grew what? Now, because the ram was great. Remember that? Now we have the goat. The goat is? Okay, I want you to remember that. That's important. But when he became strong, the large horn was what? What does that mean? Do you remember what that meant? He died. In the year 323 BC, he died on the very same spot where Belshazzar was slain in the year 538 BC. Isn't that interesting? More than 200 years before him. It's an amazing book, the Bible. The details are fantastic. And in its place, now I want you to look at this. Now you need to concentrate on this. And I know you can do that. In place of it, or what is it here? What do we mean by it? The large horn that got broken. 4 notable ones. So 4 notable horns. Are you with me? And the Hebrew, the word for horn, keren, also means power. Came up towards the 4 winds of heaven. Yeah, that's right. Now we're going to explain that. Though I mentioned it last week, explaining on the map how the Grecian Empire was divided ultimately. Remember that? Yeah. Oh, we're coming back to that. The Grecian Empire lasted from 331 to 168 BC. I'll explain that one in a minute. Okay. Are you with me so far? Everybody is following me? Don't think of your holidays. This is what you got to concentrate on. Now he says, that's the angel again explaining things. The year is 536 BC. It is the 3rd year of Cyrus who conquered Babylon. Then a mighty king shall arise who shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. This, of course, is Alexander the Great. And when he has arisen, his kingdom shall be broken up and divided towards the 4 winds of heaven. Now, the 4 winds of heaven is an expression for north, south, east, and west. Are you with me? That's basically what that expression means. Okay. It's important, though. In the place of the 4 notable ones came up towards either north, south, east, or west, the winds of heaven. In its place, in the place of Alexander, you get 4 powers. Now I'm going to explain something to you that was willfully distorted. When the Reformation found strength, and they were proclaiming the truth about the historicity of the Bible, and they went into the prophecies, and the prophecies seemed to single out the medieval church because its conduct and behavior fitted the description. And in order to relieve some of the attention that prophecy brought to them, there was a willful attempt to distort the explanation, the exegesis, as you might call it, of these prophecies. I'll come back to that another time. What is interesting is this. You know, when people tell you porkies, they tell you untruth. And then you find out it's not true, but isn't it funny how it sticks, mud sticks? It's amazing. It's very easy. I'm going to show you tonight the only explanation there is. So what has been adopted by this medieval church, which today is Roman Catholic Church, and many evangelicals, Protestant churches, most of them by far, I'm going to show you from the original language that this is completely impossible. And so you need to pay attention. Because if somebody comes to you and say, oh no, there's a different explanation. The Bible explains what? Just as well. I don't have to do it. I just let the Bible do it. And fairy tales, another time. In place of the four notable ones came up towards the four winds of heaven. Now let's have a look at that. There you have the four warring generals who in 301 BC have their turf decided. Seleucus was probably the most prominent one. You have Ptolemy, the Ptolemaic pharaohs come from here. And then you have Cassander and Lysimachus there. Now Lysimachus did beat ultimately Cassander and dominated. Seleucus certainly dominated Lysimachus. And then you have this turf war between the Seleucid rulers and the Ptolemaic rulers. And I'm going to show you a little bit tonight, actually maybe another time, why that is so. It's all in the 11th chapter of Daniel. It is very fascinating. Initially, Ptolemy and Seleucus got on, but their descendants started to fight. And once you fight, it's like a neighbor, isn't it? There's always a reason to fight again. But can you see the four winds of heaven? That way, that way, that way, and that way. Can you see the prediction? Made hundreds of years before it actually happened. You with me? Okay. Now, we're going to have a very close look at that verse so we may understand it. Out of one of them came a little horn which grew how great? The ram was great. The goat was very great. This one is, so it must be greater than Alexander. Get it? Okay. That's what the Bible says. I'm not saying this, the Bible says that. Towards the south, towards the east, and towards the glorious land. Now, what is meant by the glorious land here? Israel, Palestine, for sure. Now, you and I got to sort something out. Out of one of them. Now, in the English, you have two possibilities. In the English, you have two possibilities. You can have in the place of one of the four horns. There are the four horns. Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. In English, it could come of one of them. Are you with me? Does everybody understand it? You got to grasp it. One day you're going to have to explain that to somebody. They'll come with you with a furphy that they got from the internet and then you have to be able to say, well, let me explain something to you. It's not what the Bible teaches. And so, either it comes out of one of those horn powers, yeah, or it could come from the four winds of heaven, couldn't it? That's for certain it could. Two possibilities. In English, you have two possibilities. Either one of the four horns, or either it came somewhere from the north, somewhere from the south, somewhere from the east, somewhere from the west. It doesn't say. Everybody follows me so far? Okay, great. Now let me explain something. This one is in the Hebrew. It says no good to me because I can't read it. That's okay. Let me read it for you. You read from right to left. You understand? We read from left to right. In the Hebrew, you go the other way around. Okay. Now, umin means and from them, or no, actually and out. Ha achat, the one, it's a definite article. This is interesting. Mayhem. That word may is a proposition that means from. Exactly like there. It's an abbreviated form from. Hem is the one I'm interested in. Now I'm going to show you something. That word is a key word in the Hebrew. That relates to them. Why is it so important? I want you to see something. Let me show you. See that little thing here? That's an N. We would call that an N. That one down there, we would call that an M. Okay. So the difference between an N and an M is not much in our language, but when you look at the Hebrew language, it's a completely different character. Would you agree with me on that? Yes, you would. Okay. Now, I've got to explain something. Horns if it refers to the horns, one of the, either that one, or that one, is a feminine noun. You know, in certain languages, you have masculine and feminine. You don't have that in English. But you have it in German. Die, der, das. Das is neuter. In French, le garçon, that means the boy. La fille, that means the girl. You have feminine and masculine. You have that in the Hebrew, feminine and masculine. You don't have that in the English. So, the word for horn is feminine. Whether it's singular or plural. Okay. So, this is masculine, so it couldn't be out of one of those, because grammatically that's not allowed. Because the horns are feminine, and this one, them, is in the masculine. Is everybody following me? Okay. Now, when you look at the four winds of heaven, winds, in the Hebrew, ruach means wind, it means spirit, it means behavior, can mean a number of things, depends on the context. But here, ruchot, that is the feminine plural, winds is normally feminine. But here is an interesting word, connecting with that, shamayim. Now, shamayim is a dual plural. Now I'm really going to make it hard for you. Which could be feminine or it could be masculine. But the writer made absolutely sure, and I've had my discussions and arguments with various people, and I've never lost this one yet. I mean, I haven't lost it, the Bible hasn't lost it. That one is clearly masculine, that can be masculine. And what the writer has done, he has made sure that he distincts the true one, the only possibility, and makes it absolutely certain that any Hebrew reading that would never explain it would came from one of the four horns, as in the Grecian descendancy. It cannot be. It has to come out of the four winds of heaven. Boy, that's a bit of a lesson for you. You'll be hard-pressed to ever have this explained again. But that's the simple truth. That's the grammatical truth. Are you with me here? Okay. So, this relates, this is the compass, the four winds of heaven, north, south, west, and east. Correct? Absolutely. Now, that solves that problem. So the power that we're going to talk about cannot be from Grecian origin. It cannot be certainly from a Persian, because they were defeated, and let alone a Babylonian, they were defeated. Okay. Now we get to the Romans. The Roman Empire that lasted for some 6 centuries. You know that we've put down the end of the Grecian Empire at 168 BC. The reason being, there was a battle at a place called Pydna, which is the Macedonian dynasty of the Antigonid, which is actually related to Alexander the Great, was finally defeated right there. That was the last of the leftover of the Grecian Empire. And hence historici normally say that is the end of the Grecian Empire. Did you follow that? It's an historical reality, and that's how it's been adopted. Now, here comes some interesting stuff. Pompey, a Roman general, very ambitious man, he conquered Jerusalem in 63 BC. He did. There's a little story about Pompey. He gets into the city and he marches to the temple. And as he marches to them, he walks straight into the holy place. There's a priest lying there to stop him. They warned, they'll be killed. They don't care. They want to stop him from coming in. Anyway, they couldn't resist him. And he walks into the holy place, and then he sees a curtain. And he walks to the curtain, he moves the curtain. And what did he see? No, because the ark wasn't there anymore. The Ark of the Covenant was not there anymore. The Ark of the Covenant, you'll find it in a book called First Maccabees, which is not a biblical canonical book, but historically has got some good details. During the, prominence of Jeremiah the prophet, he instructed them before 586 AD, just before the armies of Nebuchadnezzar were going to destroy Jerusalem and the temple. He got them to take away the ark. God instructed him to remove the ark. He had the ark removed. Tradition has it, it's somewhere in a cave, and they're still looking for it. It is not to be found. Ever seen that movie, The Raiders of the Lost Ark? Yeah, it's all based on the belief that you can still find it. Yeah, you won't. Well, that's not the ark. That's just it. You can't see it. Plenty of reporters have tried and tried and tried. No, they won't be allowed in. It's not there. It's not there. It's not there. Now, Pompey couldn't understand a religion that worships an empty space. That surprised me. These people are crazy. That didn't fit with him. That power, the Roman power towards the south, towards the east, towards the glorious land, they took it all. They took it all. Now, we're going to get the last vision that Daniel has. And he has that vision actually in the third year of Cyrus, and the year is 536 BC, and it all deals with chapter Daniel 11. I'm going to take bits and pieces from chapter 11. And you got to understand that is the time when it is written. If anybody tries to tell you that Daniel wrote after the fact, Jesus would never have called him Daniel the prophet, but he did. The Jews would have never have regarded him as a prophet. He would have been an historian like Josephus. Get it? The canon was closed, that the Tanakh of the Hebrew Bible was closed 400 BC. So, this could not be the case. Because if Daniel would have written about Medo-Persia, okay, we understand. But here we have Greece, and that is well after the close of the canon. So it is a prophecy. It is not a report. It is certainly not a reporting. He wasn't there at the time. He had died a long time ago. He did not recount a history. He was a prophet. Vision at the river Tigris. Now, have a look at this. I'm going to take some lines out of the 11th chapter of the book of Daniel. And you have a little biography of this man here. Who do you think it is? Julius Caesar. Very distinctive man. I came, I saw, I conquered Julius Caesar. Now it's interesting that in 51 BC, the last ruler, Ptolemy, a descendants Auletes, or the 11th, the last descendants of the first Ptolemy. He had two children, Cleopatra and Ptolemy the 12th. And he placed them under the guardianship of Rome. But you know, the boy was very weak and never performed anything. Rome had Egypt already for 100 years as what we call a client. That's where the word comes from. It's a Roman word. Customer, you'd say. And he shall give him, that's actually in the context, the Ptolemaic descendancy, shall give him down here, the daughter of woman. It wouldn't be the daughter of a man, I suppose it could be too. But very feminine, that's the expression. The daughter of woman to destroy it, whatever the deal was. She must have flashed her eyelashes at him. And it may not be the only... Don't you love this? The moment I saw it, I thought, this is good, this is good. But she shall not stand with him or be... She had her own agenda. It's like marrying a partner and they have their own ambitions. Not a good. Because she became the mistress of Julius Caesar. And he was rather... taken by her. But he was also ambitious himself. She shall not stand with him or be for him. That's a key text. Now, in the Hebrew it's slightly different, I suppose, and he shall give him the daughter of woman to destroy it, but she shall not stand with him or be before him. And here we have it again. I have a double here. Okay. After this, he, that's Julius Caesar, turns his face to the coastlands and shall take many. If you study the history after he's been to Egypt, he turns around and he subdues a number of uprisings, solidifies territorial possession. But a ruler shall bring the reproach against them to an end. Let me explain something. Julius Caesar had proclaimed, insisted, concocted, that he was the perpetual ruler of the Republic of Rome. He was for life. Now the Senate had voted that in, but not everybody liked him. Have a look at this. And with the reproach removed, he shall turn back on him. I'm going to take that from a straight Hebrew translation in a minute. Here it is. But a captain shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. He wanted to be boss. There was a lot of opposition. And there was a person, a captain, sort of, who makes sure that the offense that he had given in his ambition would be removed. He shall cause his own reproach to return on him. It was Julius Caesar's own fault. Ambition can lead to a downfall. Ultimately, people will get sick of you. And many there didn't want him. So what happened? What happened? Let's look at the history. Then he shall turn his face toward the fortress of his land. He shall stumble and fall and not be found. And I've put a date there in yellow, March the 15th, 44 BC. What do you think happened on that very date? He got stabbed. The location is still there. What are the names of the two? Well, that's one of them. You too, Brutus. Everybody knows Brutus, but nobody, the other offender, was as bad as, because he stabbed him too. Okay. Gaius Cassius, Longinus, and Marcus Junius Brutus. Those are the offenders. They killed him, they assassinated him. And that was it. Now Cleopatra, now, is without a very valuable boyfriend. So she looks to Mark Antony. Yeah? Remember the movie? What were their names again? Richard Burton. She needs another. Yes. She needs a Richard Burton who played the role of Mark Antony, didn't he? But Mark Antony got defeated by Octavian, land and sea. She tried to engrace herself to Octavius. He wasn't interested in the woman. He could see right through her. And so she killed herself. She killed herself. Yeah. Well, presumably, yeah. Okay. So, I remind you, do you remember the year all this is given? No, 536 BC. That's almost 5 centuries before it happened. Get it? Okay. Let's go further. There shall arise in his place, in the place of Julius Caesar, there was a triumvirate, there were 3 people that didn't work, ultimately one succeeds, who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom. So what's the glorious kingdom?
Israel.
Ah, very good, Palestine, Israel. He imposes taxes. Who does that remind you of? Since it is Augustus. Yeah, Napoleon did it, but this is not Napoleon. Doesn't look a bit like him. Okay. There is Augustus, and he imposes taxes, and that reminds us of the Nativity. Because of the taxes, they had to register at the place of their ancestry where they came from. And both Joseph and no doubt Mary as well, because both went down to Bethlehem to register. And then according to the prophecy, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. And if you study the prophet Micah, some 700 years before the event, he prophesied that. There you are, another prophecy that came true. Okay. Caesar Augustus. Now, within a few days, he, Caesar Augustus, shall be destroyed, but not in anger or in battle. He died a natural death. He wasn't poisoned. He wasn't assassinated. He didn't kill her. I'm not sure. No, it wasn't that. It wasn't a sudden death. He was ill, an infection, and he died. And he died. He ruled for over 40 years. He did. Very stable government. Now, note the next one. It only gets better. I want you to, if you could remember that date, because that's going to be important at later lectures that I'll give you. What we need to understand is what succeeds now. And in his place, that is in the place of Augustus, who died peaceably, this is marvelous if you look at the reality. 5 centuries plus before it happens, it's recorded. It's marvelous. It's stunning. It's stunning. And in his place shall arise a vile person to whom they will not give the honor of royalty. Now his name is Tiberius Caesar, and he ruled from 14 AD, when Augustus died, he took over, and he ruled to 37 AD. Now you've heard of Pontius Pilate. Well, he was the Roman procurator, governor you should say, of Judea, hated his job, because the Jews were very difficult, they probably still are. He served under Tiberius Caesar from 26 AD to 36 AD. He did that for 10 years, and he hated every day of it. Now, who died during the governorship of Pontius Pilate?
Jesus.
Yes, and Pontius Pilate served under Tiberius Caesar. I want you to see something. I remind you of the date of writing, 536 BC. You with me? Please. The vile person, Tiberius Caesar. Let me explain about him. He was a bit of a nerd. Perhaps a bit of a know-all. He was not liked. Nobody really got on with him very well. So why did he become the emperor? He wasn't a real son of Augustus. Wasn't a nephew. He was a stepson. He was the son of his favorite wife. Her name was Livia, who was actually a slave in early days, but he was besotted with her. And if you love your wife, you'll do anything for her, don't you? Yeah, okay, well, if you don't, it's not going to last. Okay, all right? Now, the voice of experience. Okay, here we are. Here we are. So she made sure that Junior went to the right school, looked right for as much as possible, got all the right education, and he worked his way up. He got a position there, then he got a position there. He learned the tricks and the trades of the court. He became a politician. That's good when you want to have government. Nobody liked him. They didn't give him the honor of royalty. Isn't that interesting? Tiberius Caesar liked. They said he only got drunk once. He just never sobered up. It became very bad later on in his reign. In the beginning, he did rather well in East and particularly the areas of Germany, Croatia today. He had some very good wins. In fact, let me put it to you this way. He shall come in peaceably, seize the kingdom by intrigue. That's exactly how he did it. Again, more than 500 years before the event, we get the correct description of Julius Caesar. We get the direct description of Caesar Augustus. We get the direct, absolute correct description of Tiberius Caesar, all in their respective order. If you were a mathematician, the coincidences are so strong, it's impossible. It is an astronomical figure. If you take all the points in account, it's an impossibility of guesswork. Do you understand? Right. And they're Roman. They're described. They're not Grecian. They're Roman. Now, with the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and be broken. He dealt very well with some of the hostilities that were rumbling there in the empire. He did rather well. But the next verse, when I discovered this one, this is the one you should take notice of. And also who? The Prince of the Covenant. Now, who is the Prince of the Covenant? Oh, yes. Every biblical student's commentator will tell you that points to Christ. What I'm trying to say, in the year 536 BC, there is a prediction that Jesus would die somewhere in this time frame, which is only a time frame of 23 years. Do you understand? It's only a time frame of 23 years, and that was predicted 536, some 550 years, 5.5 centuries before the fact. Even if Daniel was a 2nd century BC imposter, pretending to be a prophet, how did he know the 2nd century BC that would be the case? Are you with me here? This rubbish that is canvassed and sold cheap, and people just buy it and gobble it up, you wouldn't believe it, would you? Why don't they think this is way beyond the 2nd century AD? What do you got? It's interesting. And also the Prince of the Covenant. He died in 31 AD. That's when he was crucified. Yes, he rose from the dead, but here it is. The details are very good. Correct? Now, after 62 weeks, I'll explain that one time when we're going to study the time prophecies of Daniel. After the 62 weeks, the Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. That word cut off, karat, is a violent death. Jesus died a violent death. It was predicted that the Messiah, it was predicted in the year 536 BC, the 3rd year of Cyrus, it was predicted that the Messiah would meet with a violent death. Okay. Not for himself, or no one for him. Both ways is correct. He died for others, didn't he? You and me. And the people of the prince who is to come. From the day of the prophecy, 536 BC, this is future. So after then the Messiah has been. The Messiah is cut off. Afterwards, there is a prince with his people, and when he comes, what does he do? He will destroy the city, Jerusalem, and the sanctuary. What was the year of the prediction? 536 BC. Jerusalem and the temple were still in ruin. Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed in 586 BC. The temple was sort of rebuilt, the Zerubbabel temple, in 516 BC. By the time Nehemiah in 444 BC comes to Jerusalem, they only managed to build half the wall of the city of Jerusalem. It's interesting. So here we have, at the time of this prophecy, Jerusalem is already destroyed. The temple is already destroyed. In other words, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. What is the prediction? It will be rebuilt. It has to. Amazing. Amazing when you look at that. Of course, what is the name of the prince here? His name is Titus. Titus had a dad by the name of Vespasian. By the time he destroyed, he didn't want to. I'd love to tell you the story, but we're out of time. In 70 AD, well after 31 AD, the Messiah has been and gone. Titus, the son of the Emperor Vespasian, which would make him a what? It would make him a prince. In fact, he succeeded his father Vespasian, the only time in Roman history that a son succeeds the father. Isn't that amazing? So here we have, again, I need to stress that that this is over 6 centuries before it actually happens. The added detail is that Daddy obviously is the ruler, Vespasian, and that he would be the prince. The detail, in my opinion, is fantastic. Yeah? Why are there still people out there not believing the Bible? Yeah. So, let's have a look. Let's turn to the Jews, because they should know all this front and backwards, shouldn't they? Some very interesting reaction to all of this. And one day I'm going to explain to you why they do this. Rabbis, after the time of Christ, have pronounced a curse on anyone who would attempt to calculate the date of this chapter. What chapter? Chapter 9. Now I remember running seminars there at the library in Waverley. This is Jewish heartland. And a few times I have had Orthodox Jews. The other Jews, normal Jews, don't know this. And every time I came to this chapter, they'd look at me, they get up, they leave the room. I know why they do it, and I think they know I know why they do it. They are not allowed to do this, to study it. Is that a solution to truth? Hardly. There's the reference. There is the reference. Here's another one. May the curse of heaven fall upon those who calculate the date of the advent of the Messiah. Why did they say that? Because the Messiah has been and gone before the destruction of Jerusalem, who got rebuilt and restructured many times. But the one thing that got destroyed after the Messiah is the temple. And that temple was never rebuilt. Let me tell you something. I've been there many times. I used to live in the old city of Jerusalem. I used to live amongst the Palestinians. Had a little business there doing portraits. I can still do it for you for a fee. No, that's all right. I used to go to the mosque. And it's a magnificent building. The artistry, the tile work, the rugs, the Persian rugs. Do you like Persian rugs? The best in the world are actually in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And I used to go with a friend of mine. He was a teacher. Nice people, teachers. And he was Muslim. And I used to come with him to the mosque. So much so, as we were sort of kneeling, I was very easygoing at that time. He used to say to me, Barend, I think you're going to be a Muslim. Because you go, I said, no, I'm looking at this carpet. It's a Tabriz. And there's an Isfahan. I said, it's fantastic. Look at the knot density. And it's more than 80 years old. It's almost, and he looked at me. I said, I'm going to come here one day with a big truck. When you're all gone, I'll load them all up. With fantastic. The best rugs I've ever seen. The most collectible. Fantastic. Now, the Mosque of Omar is not really a mosque. It's really a memorial to the fact that when Muhammad leaped on his horse to heaven, the horse left a footprint as evidence in the rock. That's it. What is the most holy site of Islam? Mecca. What is the second most holy site of Islam? Medina. What is the third most holy place of Islam? Oh, the temple, the mount, the temple mount, the Mosque of Omar, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Exactly the spot where you need to, there's only one place. This is Mount Moriah. There is only, God told Solomon, that's the only place. Why was that the only place? That's where Abraham was told to sacrifice his son Isaac, and if you're a Muslim, of course, it's Ishmael. Isn't this interesting? That little mistake that Abram made all those years ago, 1900 BC, he listened to his wife, got Hagar, and Ishmael and Isaac are still fighting today. Do you understand? Well, yes. Do you understand? What a tremendous, well, Jacob isn't a descendant of Isaac. Can you see the tremendous, it's incredible, isn't it? Huh? Shiite? No, Sunni. Yeah. 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 No. Yeah, Iran is dominantly Shiite, as is Iraq. As is Iraq. It's the Sunnis that really dominated there because of Saddam Hussein. There are two countries that dominantly Shiite. 85% of Islam is Sunni. Yeah. Okay. Now it's interesting. In answer to your question, will the temple be rebuilt? Not on your life. Even America won't back Israel in doing that. It is forbidden to express the thought that the temple should be rebuilt on that site. Even Israeli officials don't want to hear that. In private, they may wish it was. You have 1.2 billion Muslims on a holy jihad. Make no mistake. That makes ISIS look like a kindergarten. I'm telling you. They'll defend it to the last. You got no idea. You got no idea. God allowed this to find place, respectively built 590 and 620 AD. The Mosque of Omar first and then the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the same Temple Mount. Incredible. History is fascinating. True? Oh, absolutely. 20 AD? No. Be about 590 and 620 AD. Yeah. Islam didn't come into being until, later. Yeah. Much later. Yeah. Okay. May the curse of heaven fall on those who calculate the date of the advent of the Messiah and thus create political and social unrest among the people. That's the curse. There's a few more. They all sound the same. Why did the rabbis do that? In the middle of the latter part of the Reformation, when it was the Bible and the Bible alone, the reformers went to the Jews, to the rabbis, and they said to the rabbis, you say you're the chosen people. You're still waiting for the Messiah. Have a read of Daniel 9. Oh, they didn't like it. They didn't like it one bit, and they put a number of curses on them. That you not may the finger of the hand of the arm of the man who studies time prophecy of Daniel rot. May the breath of the one who calculates the time prophecy of Daniel expire. In other words, may you drop dead. What sort of language is that when you look at truth? Now, they won't touch it, take it out. But I'll tell you what they have done. If you look at the Hebrew Bible, they have taken the book of Daniel and they've placed it under the writings rather than the prophets for that very reason. In fact, that was done already much earlier. So it's interesting. It's interesting when you look at things. All right, we're just about there. One more little thing that you need to know. One more little thing you really need to know, and that's it. In Daniel 7, there's a statement. I watched till the beast, and he's talking about this dragon, was slain, and its body destroyed and given to, the burning flame. So what's happening here? What's left of that animal? Absolutely nothing. That's what he says. He said, have a look. As for the rest of the beast, they had their dominion taken away. Babylon lost to Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia lost to Greece. Greece ultimately lost to Rome. Rome is destroyed. But as for the rest of the beast, they had their rulership, their dominion taken away. But their lives were prolonged for a time and a season. Now this is fascinating. The year of this writing is 550 BC. He says that of the Babylonians, the lion, the people will still remain in existence. Where can you find them? You go to Iraq. They're still there. Now, as for the Medo-Persians, the Medo-Persian bear, they're still there. The ram, they're still there. They're Persians. When you go to Greece, the leopard, the goat, funny enough, full of Greek people. They got no more money, but there's still lots of Greek people. That's the way it is. When you go to Rome, what do you find?
Italians.
Oh, Italians. They're not Romans. They're Lombards. That is a Germanic tribe. You will not find a leftover of the Romans anywhere. In the year 550 BC, the man Daniel, under inspiration, wrote down the fact that the Roman Empire that ruled the world for 600 years would be absolutely destroyed. And he predicted the other three, and he got the right one. He had 4 choices. Actually, he had, again, mathematically, if you take all the variables in account, you get such an astronomical figure, you couldn't climb over it. Why don't people doubt the Word of God? I mean, it has to be the Word of God. That's the way it is. God is in control? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This proves it. Because God knows the end from the beginning only because He is what? In control. He will never force the will of the people. But He foreknows what's going to happen, and the evidence, and again, tonight has been presented to you. Next week, from iron to iron and clay. In fact, we got to find out the 10 horns, and beyond the 10 horns. And we are moving towards the countdown of the last empire. God bless you. God bless you. See you next week again.